we are in a midterm election year and things are going to quickly focus to that, where people are not going to want to talk about the Clarity Act or Bitcoin Reserve anymore. It's going to be, how can I win or keep my seat, or, support this candidate to win? The game of politics is going to get nasty. The news cycle is going to go crazy, and crypto will not be a high priority.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's like, I do think legislation, I'm looking forward to it being not such a topic anymore and just being something that enters into this industry, so that, because regulation at the end of the day, I'm sorry, it is boring.
This episode is brought to you by iTrust Capital. iTrust Capital allows you to invest in crypto as well as precious metals like gold and silver via an IRA. And this gives you huge tax advantages. So you can invest in over 90 crypto assets, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and many more. You also get access to stablecoins such as Circle's USDC and Ripple's RLUSD. And as it relates to precious metals, you can invest in gold and silver, and these are the physical assets. So you're not investing in paper gold and silver. So on this platform, you can redeem the gold and silver if you choose to, and not many platforms offer that. Now, the big advantage to investing via iTrust Capital's IRA is the huge tax advantages. Many of you know you incur capital gains taxes when you sell at a gain. Well, you can minimize the effect of some of that by doing it via an IRA, especially if you have a long-term view on crypto as well as precious metals. And you can buy and sell crypto and precious metals 24/7. It's low cost and no monthly fee. So this is a great option to get exposure to these two great asset classes. And in addition, they have a great custody solution. It's called Premium Custody Account. So it uses institutional grade crypto custody, such as Coinbase Prime, which BlackRock leverages. iTrust also uses Fidelity Digital Assets as well as Fireblocks, and it's a closed loop system. So if someone hacks into your account, they can't withdraw funds. I believe this is the second safest way to custody your assets, right behind self-custody, where you control the private keys. And within the custody account, you could buy and sell 24/7. It's low fees. So this is a great option for custody of your assets, and you can sleep at night knowing that you're getting the institutional grade custodial services. So once again, two great products here from iTrust Capital: the IRA, where you can roll over your existing 401k or IRA to iTrust Capital's version, getting the huge tax advantages, and the institutional custody. And folks, if you sign up with my link at itrustcapital.com/go/thinkingcrypto, you could get a $100 funding bonus. I have an account with iTrust Capital, so I encourage you to go check out iTrust Capital, learn about their services, and see if it's right for you. Again, you can get a $100 funding bonus by signing up via my link, which is itrustcapital.com/go/thinkingcrypto. Link will be in the description. Hey everyone, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast, Crypto Water Cooler series. I'm Tony Edward.
And I'm Amanda Whitcroft.
And we are going to dive into the latest and greatest crypto news that you need to know about. Amanda, good to see you. Happy Friday.
You too. Happy Friday. We made it another week.
Yeah, right. Another week. Bitcoin is actually up this morning. It's over $78,000. That's a good sign. I don't know how long it will last, because I feel like we're still in the bear market, but it's good to see some green.
Absolutely. Especially coming off the Bitcoin conference. I imagine that had something to do with it.
Yeah, there were some interesting announcements coming out of the conference, but I'm hearing some not so good things about the Bitcoin Las Vegas conference. I won't give a name, but I ran into one of the CEOs of an altcoin project at the airport in Las Vegas. I was out in the desert, so I was not at the conference. But he was saying it was a bit of a low turnout, not as exciting. He gave an example of Eric Trump's speech. There was only about 60 people in the room there for that. So not really a great turnout.
Yeah, I think there's a really interesting split happening in crypto right now. And, it not for lack of buzzwords, but it really is between signal and noise. And on one side, you've got a real infrastructure getting built. You've got the payments and regulation and institutional rails. And on the other side, you've got what I like to call conference theater and the hype cycles that feel increasingly disconnected from reality. And I tweeted this morning, the general admission to go to this conference was $6.99. Now, I doubt most of the masses are doing that because it doesn't get you access to certain panels or meeting people. So you're paying that next tier is $2,100 a ticket. I don't know who can afford this.
Yeah, especially in today's economy, and not to mention, we are in a bear market. There's not much excitement, and I don't think a lot of people are in profit right now. I think a lot of people are in the red, and those ticket prices, they just seem like they're catering for maybe institutional folks. It's no longer about the average Joe getting access to Bitcoin. It feels like it's become this exclusive club.
It sure does, and it's as a capitalist, I understand that your influencers who are there, your sponsors who are there, they're contracted to do it, and they're doing a job, and they're getting paid to be there. And I think that's where it's extremely important to differentiate between who's actually there. Because it's their job, and who's there to actually learn and network. Because I don't think a lot was taken out from a substance perspective from this conference. I was watching a lot of the reshared posts, even from Eric Trump, and it's a lot of recycled talking points that simply, if you're living in crypto Twitter, you're already hearing these things.
Yeah, to your point, doesn't seem to be anything new. While we got an update from, let's say, Patrick Witt, the White House crypto advisor, that there
Mhm.
may be some significant news coming in the near term regarding the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We've been hearing that for months, right? We've been
Right.
hearing all these things. It's coming, and there's nothing new. Like, why do I need to go to the Bitcoin conference? Maybe if I'm brand new to crypto, I may want to go, but it's still, the prices are very high. But if I already own some Bitcoin, there's not a reason for me to go.
No. And that's and remember too, like I'm mentioning the ticket prices, I'm leaving out the fact that you have to get a hotel, you have to get airfare, and let's say oil prices are through the roof because of our involvement in Iran right now. So I really, on average, on the low end, you're talking about the average person spending roughly 7 to 8 grand just to be there. And then again, what are you getting out of it? You've got Tim Draper on the floor, who I saw was in a lot of selfies with people. And again, there's also the origin story of Bitcoin being the decentralized peer-to-peer network. I realize it's matured much more, and we have the convergence of TradFi now. But I think that's where the conference needs to shift with that. FinTech Week in New York was also this week. And I feel like it was completely overshadowed by the hype of Bitcoin. But meanwhile, FinTech Week had more substance. There were more institutional players on the ground at that conference. And most of their side events were free simply through an RSVP. So I think we really need to navigate what we should be paying attention to. But I also think that the silver lining of all of this is I think it goes to prove that the space is maturing, because the Vegas conference and the big, people are no longer convening at these types of places.
That's spot on. And some of the fintech event side shows and after events and so forth, I got invites to them. It wouldn't have cost me anything to go to them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was traveling. But to your point, things have shifted. There is much more of a crowdsourcing and focus on the building that's happening on Wall Street. And guess what? The Wall Street folks are not really attending Bitcoin Las Vegas, right? They're
Yeah.
going to be having their own summits and maybe on a more intimate level. And to your point, there's substance, there's talks of what they're building. And at Bitcoin Las Vegas, I don't think there's any talks about building. It's just, hey, Bitcoin's great, Bitcoin's a story of value. But like you said, we've seen and heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah. And somebody who I really respect and follow on Haley Lennon, she was going on about where I'm tired of Bitcoin being this flagship conference being in Vegas. I think there's also that as well, where again, we're trying to legitimize this asset being so speculative for so many years to the masses. I don't think it's prudent to do it at the one of the biggest casino cities in this country.
That's such a great point. Like, we're trying to get away from the casino mindset, right?
Right.
And that this is a mature asset that you can hold in your portfolio long term, maybe towards your retirement, treat it as gold, not go throw it on black or red, Amanda.
Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, but I agree with you. I think the one thing that came out of, well, two things. I think Patrick Witt, which I know we've heard before, but also Senator Loomis, who is saying we're close to a mid-May markup. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know she's also been tweeting that a lot.
Yeah, and that's kind of annoying, even though I appreciate Senator Lummis and the work she's done, but constantly saying the same thing over and over, but well, we're not seeing the actual action, so to speak, right? The rubber's not hitting the road here. So I don't know what is happening in DC right now. We're close to a compromise with the banks on the stablecoin yield situation, which is holding up the Clarity Act. There's talks of, oh, we're going to have a draft out and we're going to start the markup, and then that gets delayed. So I don't know what is happening. I'm seeing tweets, I'm seeing people make statements, but there's no action. There's nothing coming to fruition.
No, and then you have Brad Garlinghouse who comes at the tail end of this thing, and there was the XRP convention at the tail end of Bitcoin, the Bitcoin conference, and he's saying this, we've lost the opportunity, or window's over. So it's yeah, it's weird to see this divide amongst, all very intelligent, powerful leaders, and so I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, it's really frustrating. And my hope, look, there is a little bit of time because you and I spoke to Patrick Witt at the Solana Policy Summit, where he said, look, I think the latest is by the August recess. So we do have some time, but it's not looking good, Amanda. Like, my confidence level is also dropping. Like, we keep hearing the same thing over and over, but nothing's happening.
Right. And it to me, I kind of laugh, like, do people show up to the Bitcoin conference, and Senator Lummis, gets up on stage saying, all right, guys, it's not going to happen in May. What is she? I think she has to advocate for it, or champion it in some way. Otherwise, I don't see the alternative happening. So I am concerned that this won't happen this year.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I am curious. Patrick Witt did mention about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I'm really curious what that might be. Are they going to figure out a revenue neutral way to buy Bitcoin? Although I feel the Clarity Act is more important than the strategic Bitcoin reserve, because President Trump signed the executive order. They are taking all the Bitcoin confiscated by the different government agencies and putting it into that reserve. But
Mhm.
everybody wants to know, hey, are you going to start buying? And I think that would be a huge catalyst and drive a lot of FOMO. But I'm also not optimistic about that. If we can't get the Clarity Act through, that Congress is going to be like, yeah, go buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it would be, if this is true, it's a massive narrative shift, but it does mirror how the government treats gold reserves, energy reserves. But we have to be real, as to your point, we've heard these big announcements coming before in crypto and policy. So while I think the market is cautiously optimistic, we can't just, the idea isn't crazy anymore. I think that's the shift. A few years ago, this would have sounded absolutely insane. But so I am optimistic in that sense. I just don't know how the timeline of this, clarity seems to be contingent on a lot of this happening.
Yeah. And then, we are in a midterm election year, and things are going to quickly focus to that, where people are not going to want to talk about the Clarity Act or Bitcoin Reserve anymore. It's going to be, how can I win or keep my seat, or, support this candidate to win? The game of politics is going to get nasty. The news cycle is going to go crazy, and crypto will not be a high priority.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's like I do think legislation. I'm looking forward to it being not such a topic anymore, and just being something that enters into this industry, so that, because regulation at the end of the day, I'm sorry, it is boring, but until it unlocks trillions in capital, and now we're incentivizing innovation and we're bringing it all here into this country.
Yeah, we got to get it done. And then to your point, like, I am also getting tired of it. And I wish we can get it done and just move forward and just get to building and innovation and creating jobs and new companies. And like you said, bringing some of those companies back to the US that left.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, speaking of companies that are building, Amanda, Tether, they just released their Q1 2026 attestation, over $1 billion in revenue, if I'm not mistaken, or profit. Let me just double check here. Yeah, net profits, over $1 billion in net profits for Q1 2026. They're doing acquisitions and much more. This company is going bananas, man.
Yeah. I mean, this is again back to my point of, everyone's arguing about Bitcoin narratives. Here again, signal versus noise. Tether is quietly becoming one of the most important financial institutions in the world. I actually was on the phone yesterday with my friend who's an MD at Cantor Fitzgerald. They just partnered with Tether, and I did not know that, which makes them extremely marketable for IPOs and capital raises for portfolio clients and potentials. But they're expanding beyond just USDT, so they're acting essentially like a shadow bank, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's usually a lot of FUD around Tether. There has been for many years. And look, I want to make sure I'm fair because I interviewed some of the co-founders of Tether. Back in the day, I don't think the ship was in the right place, but they've, I think, cleaned up their books and everything is copacetic now. And while there's people still focusing on FUD, this company continues to build. They're one of the most profitable companies in the world. They're doing a lot of investments now. There's talks of them proposing a merger with 21 Capital. They're investing in AI. They're doing tokenization of gold. It's amazing what Tether has become. And, do they even need to go public with the amount of money they're making?
It's so funny that you say that. I feel like the IPO has almost lost its luster a little bit. IPOs are happening and I think that was being pushed largely again to legitimize this industry. And I don't know exactly the vetting process of going public, but it does seem to be at a rapid rate where it's losing its I don't think it's at what it once was.
Yeah, and I'm curious, why that is. I don't know. People are a little bit jaded. It's also economic. We're not in a great economic position where people have extra money to invest, right? Or they're feeling very optimistic. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go out and invest in this company. They're going public. There's not that fervor. There's not that excitement. Again, we referenced some of the economic situation. So maybe in the cyclical aspect of markets and the economy, once we're back in a better place as an economy and there's more companies going public, people will get more excited. But also, to your point, I don't know if there's an underlying jadedness here that, hey, IPOs, who cares?
Yeah. I hope that changes too. And I agree the economy, and again, going back to the Bitcoin conference and really just the opinions on a lot right now, we have a new administration where there's also now a divide, but you have a lot more innovation, things being built that they could not have otherwise done under the previous administration, or I think even if we had Kamala Harris come in as president. So while we should be very grateful for those things, there's also a foundation, economically that I think we had to almost break apart to build back. And I'm hopeful, and I have to remain hopeful. I think you and I both, Tony, as parents for the future, that we're raising our children and that this does get better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I reference that, it's cyclical. So I don't,
Mhm.
while people get sometimes distracted by politics and this side versus this side, there are certain things that no party can control because it's the cyclical nature of money printing, right?
Yep.
And having to fight the inflation after you printed records amount of capital and dollars and so forth. So I think we're going through that right now that no one president, regardless if it was Kamala Harris or President Trump, could actually change that. That is not something that is usually broadcast in the mainstream. A lot of people actually don't know how the economic and money system works. I always say if people knew what was happening at the Fed, they would probably riot around the Federal Reserve building. That I'm not telling people to do that. So please, Federal Reserve people, I don't want to get in trouble. But if they understood what was happening to their currency and the impact that has, they would probably be really, really upset about the Fed. But there's the Democrats versus Republican and the independent in the middle, and that's just how the show goes.
Yeah, and the great choice of words, the show. I think we need an America First party to emerge after, especially as we're seeing new digital currency coming in. I think with that, we need to see new leaders come in and take the reins.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm optimistic that we'll come out of. Look, we always have these recessionary
Yeah,
periods. It's just part of how the economy works. Obviously, it's rough, and I'm not saying it's an easy thing to go through, but it's par for the course. Unfortunately, unless the money system changes at some point in the future, they're going to have to keep printing, and I think they will print again. We'll go to another boom cycle, and then we'll go to another bust cycle. I think we're going through a bit of a bust cycle right now, and the idea of learning or having financial education is so important now more than ever because the governments have kind of ran out of options. They just have to hit the money printer, unfortunately. And this is where you want to hold assets like Bitcoin and crypto and stocks and so forth, so you can help yourself and outpace that the basement.
yeah. I think those are all very, very good points, and yeah, I don't want to get too down that rabbit hole
Yeah.
because I want to refrain from getting too political. But yeah, I think those are great points.
So I'm going to talk about Alex Mashinsky. This is one, and that's close to home because I interviewed Alex Mashinsky maybe about 8 times over the past, 7 years or so. Um, and what really pissed me off was Alex went on TV, he went on my show and lied to people, and that now we're hearing there's going to be some sort of settlement. What is your take on this?
He's, you know, I think it's yeah, he's banned from crypto, and I think financial penalty, a lot of people feel this doesn't match the scale of the damage done, and I have to agree with that. Retail investors lost billions. And others argue, regulators are trying to set precedent without overreaching. Okay, but I think the question is this accountability, or is this the cost of doing business in crypto? And I just don't really. He did scam a lot of people, and this was in a crisis. The 2022 crisis of was it Tetra USD,
Oh,
or
Terra
Terra
Luna.
USD.
Yeah.
And that's I think where this all started happening, and they froze assets, and people were just like, well, where's my money? And he threw his hands up. To me, I am one that agrees a fine and a ban from crypto. This guy probably has crypto hidden in offshore account, where he'll just go live out the rest of his days scot free. And this industry is so niche such that Alex Mashinsky can walk outside and probably most people won't know who he is. If you're in this space, you're a native crypto person, you would know who he is. But otherwise, I think he'll just live on, and I think that's where people are upset.
Yeah, and I'm one of them. The punishment does not fit the crime. He should
No.
be spend some time in jail. Look, Sam Bankman-Fried is in jail, rightfully so. Alex Mashinsky should also be in jail. Maybe not the same level of sentencing and term and so forth, but he should spend some time in jail because, like I said, he willingly, he knew things were not right, and he had a kind of a bit of a Ponzi running, and he would come like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Put your money, and you're going to earn right," and all these things, and also, I believe when they were about to collapse, him and some of the other executives started cashing out. Come on, man, you got to go to jail for that.
That's right. And I'm shocked. I mean, he must have very good attorneys, I'm like, how did this guy get off so easy? I really don't understand that. And he was of that campaign narrative of unbank the banked. He was that was the Celsius network and launching the token. And I think it's really like, you look to now, and it's real, like, where as a publicist, where it used to be the launches of these token launches and press releases for announcements, you're seeing now, even with Tether, the people that are actually making an impact, it's very quiet. It's not an announcement anymore. It's not a token launch. And I'm very happy about that, because obviously we've seen time and time again, your most corrupt and your most fraudulent, they're the loudest. They are so loud, and they're on every, YouTube, simply because they're getting this momentum. And it doesn't always mean there's legitimacy behind that token and that company.
Yeah, it's funny. We saw this play out, as you said, in 2022. FTX, very loud, very big, right? Seems like, oh my God, they're going to take over the world, but lots of bad things happening in the background. Alex Mashinsky promoting Celsius like crazy. I remember him and Peter Schiff had the debate, and he was lying through his teeth, man. It was so bad. And then, of course, Terra Luna, right? Luna's going to take over the world. The token was going crazy. And then we know what happened after that. So to your point, a lot of the successful companies are not out there being loud. They're actually building. And then when they have a product that's ready to go to production, they'll come out and tell the public.
Yeah. I think part of this convergence of TradFi and crypto, like we always discuss, that's just it. TradFi has the reputation, it has the credibility that crypto is slowly trying to grasp right now, because of the compliance, because of the regulation. These conferences that TradFi and these institutions have been doing for decades, they're free and they're
Yeah.
small, but there are huge turnouts where they are sold out and they're turning people away, and you don't hear about them, but they're on the ground, they're convening at these places. And so I think crypto needs to kind of get the ball rolling in a similar direction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's still a bit of maturing that needs to happen, a bit of growing up, right? From that perspective. And you mentioned earlier, it shouldn't happen in Las Vegas.
No.
Um, but speaking of the building, Amanda, that these institutions are doing, Meta launched a USD stablecoin, USDC, excuse me, stablecoin payouts to creators via Stripe on the Solana and Polygon blockchains. Specifically, it is a pilot happening in Colombia and Philippines, and it's the first crypto payments product since the Libra collapse in 2022. I think this is significant. And boy, was Facebook ahead of the curve. And now years later, they're able to do something.
Yeah, he sure was. And what a testament to the time, when Libra was first created in 2019. And this was, he was creating just very fast payments through Messenger or WhatsApp. And it was at the time the government was very concerned that he was creating this private global currency. And I remember that was backed by Visa, that was backed by PayPal. I mean, he had huge players, but the government came in and was like, wait a second, what is this guy doing? So he was certainly early. It was designed as a stable coin, and now I wonder what Mark Zuckerberg thinks. Of course, billionaires have access to a lot more than we do, but yeah, I'm happy he's back in the playing field, and I hope this time he does it, with success.
Yeah. And I think the Genius Act passing gives all these companies the green light and the confidence to go build and integrate stablecoins. What I'm curious about though, Amanda, are they just testing out USDC in these small markets? Yeah, let's see how it goes. But they are building their own stablecoin, which I think would make a lot of sense for them, right?
Yeah.
Given the network that they have with different social platforms, Instagram and so forth, and the amount of users. Boy, if they launch their own stablecoin, they can get mass adoption very quickly. They can be very competitive, and not to mention, gain the benefits of having a stablecoin because you can earn the interest, parking it, at the Fed and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And it's like we just said, crypto adoption, it's not going to come from the big launches. It's going to come from these quiet integrations like this. So I think it's really smart that the way that they're approaching this.
Yeah, and I interviewed recently the head of crypto at PayPal, and one of the things they're doing, they're working with YouTube, where the PayPal stablecoin is being used to pay out to creators. That's something I actually have to test out myself, but it looks like they're piloting the creator aspect of it, which makes sense, because they already have the payments rails going there, and then I can imagine they're going to open it up to general users on Facebook and all these different platforms to be able to move money. So it's going to get really competitive. I'm really, really excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah. See, that's to me, that's the most important part of crypto growing is that the community aspect has to be, nobody needs to say, I'm using blockchain technology. I always equate it to if when Facebook first came around and everybody's logging on, starting their accounts, we're not going into the tech of it. We're not going into the nitty. We're just using it because it's connecting us to other people. And the same thing has to happen here. It should be very user friendly. It should be easy to, people don't even know they're using blockchain technology. It's the fact that it's easy, it's fast, and it's accessible. So I think the creator economy, tapping into that is key.
Yeah, that's a great point. It has to just be running behind the scenes, and to the average Joe and Jane, it just works. It offers great benefits, faster, cheaper, and so on and so forth. But it just works. They don't need to know it's this stable coin, it's this blockchain, Solana versus Polygon, or whatever it is. They don't need to see how the sausage is made. It just works, and that's how you're going to get mass adoption.
Exactly.
I'm curious to see which other big companies come out, as we head later into this year, because as you can imagine, I don't think Google is going to sit around. I mentioned YouTube before and it's owned by Google, but I feel like Google's cooking up something. They're going to do something more, Microsoft as well. I feel all these guys probably have a stablecoin tokenization crypto strategy in one way or the other. And I'm sure we're going to see more announcements because, game theory, no one wants to get left behind. Wait a minute, Meta's doing this, YouTube doing this. We gotta do it too.
No, it's true. And that's the beauty, that's what we need. We need competition. We need healthy competition in this country. We need entrepreneurship. We need more innovators who know that these big corporations are looking for those types of entrepreneurs to buy up, or somebody with a good idea that maybe they didn't think of. Like, this is the whole point of capital, that this is the positive of capitalism. So I'm happy to see that that's all coming back.
Oh yeah. And that's why, we mentioned earlier, we need that Clarity Act passed to have capitalism be put to work in a greater fashion with crypto to create more companies, more jobs, because this technology is not going away across the globe. All major countries are now embracing it. They're putting in the rules and the guidelines, but they're not banning it anymore. And especially China, they certainly want to take as much advantage of it as possible. And look, they're our biggest competitor as far as world superpowers. So
Yeah, well, they had a lot more time than we did. Unfortunately, under Biden, we were so restricted, and a lot of your crypto miners, went offshore, and because they weren't allowed to do it here. And so, as we're bringing this all back, it will take time, but hopefully, we wind up neck and neck, if not further ahead.
yeah. And the Clarity Act would be a big chess move on the
Yeah.
board. And hopefully, Amanda, next time we meet and have a water cooler episode, there's some more positive action, not news, but just action of
Yeah, it's
we're moving into the markup phase now.
yes, and I appreciate all these senators and what they're doing, and but enough of the tweets of it's moving forward. It's gonna get this like just let's see it happen. Like I think people are a bit exhausted who've been around of hearing that like let's get it done.
Absolutely. Amanda, great stuff. And everyone, we will catch you in the next episode. And as mentioned, hopefully we have some very actionable news items around the Clarity Act. But crypto's here to stay. The technology is here to stay. We just got to get through this regulatory piece, and we'll be in a clear runway to start building.
Yeah, catch you next time, everybody. Thanks, Tony.